I don't know where to start with that, but that was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speaking about how happy she is that Amazon will no longer be coming to her city, New York City, Long Island City to be specific, with their money in their industry. Amazon, the fastest growing, the most powerful corporation in the country, perhaps, certainly with the most promising future, which chose New York City out of 200. And she is celebrating the fact that she forced them out. Mark Steyn is here. Mark Steyn, Mr. Everything, author and journalist. And Mark, you have events coming up we're going to hear about shortly in Reading, Pennsylvania, Syracuse, New York, Rochester, and Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania with Dennis Miller, which is a great combination. And I think that you guys got to talk about this, if you don't mind me telling you what to do.
No. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I actually love listening to her because it reminds me of like listening to your middle school kids explain economics and politics to you. The idea that if we, instead of giving the money to the company that employs all the people, we take the money away from the company and then we'll be able to have lots more school teachers and hospitals.
Does she know what a tax break is as opposed to tax revenue?
No, I don't think she does. But the thing to remember here, Brian, is that she's where the energy is on the party, and there are a substantial number of economic illiterates who will be happy to follow her there.
And we've seen that last week with the Green the Green Deal.
Yeah.
Look at all those people lined up behind her.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people there are a lot of big shot, experienced senators and congressmen who no longer dare to go against the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wing. And what's fascinating too is that Amazon is thinks of itself as the wokiest company on the planet. And you're already seeing a split now between the woke internet, high-tech people and the far left. That's interesting.
There's so much irony here.
Yeah.
Because it was the liberal mayor, the incompetent mayor de Blasio, who, along with Governor Cuomo, put their personal animosity for each other, both Democrats, and said, we got to bring Amazon here. Right. And they won the bid. Yeah. Now, Mark, as you know, when you have LeBron James or if you have Tom Brady, you're going to pay more for them than you will back on offensive linemen because life's not fair. They are better than us at what they do. Amazon is better. So to attract that company, you have to make it a better deal than elsewhere. But now, they also offered to talk to her and explain what she wanted and hear her out. She never even showed up.
No. And that's what's fascinating. Because when you say de Blasio's a Democrat, he's not a Democrat like Ed Koch. He's not like that New York machine poll thing. He's actually on the socialist wing of the party, and he's been out-lefted by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And that's what's fantastic here. She doesn't need to meet Amazon. She doesn't need to have it explained to her. She doesn't want to have it explained to her, and she's where the energy and romance on the left all is.
So look, are you the richest man in the world with the biggest company in the world? Do you need a tax break? Not technically, but when you're in business, you do the best you can because it all trickles down. Right. The jobs they were offering in New York City were between $150,000 and $175,000. When polled, 70% of New Yorkers wanted this done. I'll give you an example of a direct impact. Plaxol Plastics. Nobody knows what they are, but Amazon did. You know why? Yeah. They paid for that warehouse to be converted to an Amazon warehouse. And Plaxol said, that's great. Now that's done. So you have $500 million in state construction costs that are gone. Part of this is unions were knocked out because Amazon's a non-union operation. You know, we're not going to use unions. We're going to use the best bid, and that bothered New York too.
But the question here is whether Amazon thinks this is the way of the future. In other words, that they're going to do these deals, and then somebody on the crazy wing of the Democrats will be able to kick it all down. I mean, this is what's interesting over the last couple of years is that the left has become super corporate. When you look at essentially the big internet cartel of Amazon, Google, Facebook, and the left has been with them all the way. And suddenly, some 29-year-old ditz who nobody thinks anything of, has opened up a huge rift between the left and the fashionable corporations that they support. That's actually that's an intriguing development.
I'm going to play a clip that I rarely play for this reason. Donnie Deutsch, who's a very successful business person, was on another channel and said this. And by the way, AOC and some state senators who actually run that district are celebrating at this hour. Cut 46.
When you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who I find extremely dangerous at this point, to basically come out and say, as you pointed out, what a great thing it is. We can take that money and give it to teachers. It doesn't exist. It's an abatement. $27 billion. We put down 3. That's business. That's what happens. And you attach this to the Green Deal, and you are handing President Trump now gets to go, oh, the Democrats don't want jobs. The Democrats don't want companies coming to your neighborhoods. The Democrats have a Green Deal that wants a 70% tax rate, that wants jobs for everybody, even if you just hand it to you, that just tuition, hand it to you. Socialism. We are in a dangerous place, and if people in the party don't start to speak up against people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is young and dynamic, but does not know what she's talking about, and her cohorts, some of these new, fresh, progressive faces, are going to hand the presidency back to Donald Trump.
No question.
I want everybody to understand.
Okay, but for different reasons. He's afraid of that. I fear him not winning.
Yeah, no, I think there's a real risk here. I think there are people who are so out of it that everything AOC says makes sense. Everything Ilhan Omar says makes sense. And what you've seen,
and that is the congressman from Minneapolis who is who's made anti-Semitic remarks and seems very dismissive of America's foreign policy. Period.
Yeah, absolutely. And these two have been in Washington for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and already all the old lions of the party are scared of them and are scared to go up against them. And if you look at AOC in particular, people say, oh, look, she's got 3 million Twitter followers, and some guy who's been in Congress for 30, 40 years is scared to actually counter the new Green Deal. The new Green Deal, the significance of the new Green Deal is not that AOC came up with it, but that Senator Markey in Massachusetts
led the way,
and that whatever it is now, 2/3 of these Democrat presidential candidates have said they're on board. The people are scared of her. That's what's so incredible.
I just don't understand, Mark. Most of these people are in their middle ages. They've been doing this 10, 15, 20 years, and do they have any personal pride? Do they at this point want to stand up and say, listen, I'm in the back end right now. I do want to have a legacy that matters. I dislike Donald Trump so much. I want to be in the majority so badly. Right. I should really stand for something and say this is incomprehensible. On the frequently asked questions section of the Green Deal online, all the answers were wrong. And when we quoted the answers, they said we were taken out of context. No. And then they realized it was on their own website. Yeah. That's what they stood on the steps and backed. But I want you to hear what she said. Just in case you think she's backing off, cut 40.
I think it's incredible. I mean, it shows that everyday Americans still have the power to organize and fight for their communities. And they can have more say in this country than the richest man in the world.
Yeah, and that's the terms. That's like a Hollywood movie. The 28-year-old waitress. Well, yeah, it's like a 28-year-old waitress goes up against the richest man of the world. Now, if Paramount made that story, who's supposed to win? The 28-year-old waitress. So the 28-year-old waitress just kicked the butt of the richest man in the world. And if you believe in these primary-colored fairy tales that Hollywood puts out, that's the good guys won, as she tells the story.
Yeah. So I just think what people don't understand is the bigger picture is success. I always thought the fun part about being in our country is not the guarantee of success, the opportunity to get it. And whatever that success is, that success might be the best police officer and retiring in 25 years. That success might be, I want to go to the top of Wall Street. You want to do with values and ethics. I get it. But I feel like in front of my eyes, people are saying the goals that we were told were wrong, and I'm going to straighten it out. And my worry is that these people will be more powerful in 5 and 10 years than they are now.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I agree with you, and I say that as a foreigner, because I think the difference is, there's a lot of places I like. I like Sweden, Denmark, Norway. I like those countries. But people live diminished lives, in a sense. They're content to spend their whole life in a in a small apartment and bicycling to work, and they accept that the dreams of America, that you can get off the boat at Ellis Island and be in a tenement on the Lower East Side, and your kid will move uptown, and your grandson will go to university, and you will have the spectacular transformational power, social mobility, which is actually what the American dream boils down to. America is different in that respect. And what we're seeing here, actually, is whether that vision of America, it doesn't hold anything. It doesn't mean anything to AOC. The question is, how many other millions of Americans agree with her and reject that vision?
Right. They say, well, it's my future. Don't say anything because it's the green future.
Yeah.
And the green future is a disaster. When President Trump, if I said to him 2 weeks ago, what are you going to say in El Paso at that rally? He would have had a totally different speech than the one the Democrats gave him. Yeah. Abortion. You can kill a baby after he's born. Number 2, free everything. Socialism, pretty cool. Yeah. What else does he have? Let's get rid of private insurance.
Right.
That's fantastic. I mean, Kamala Harris, very bright, successful woman, says Kamala, excuse me. She's on board. Cory Booker, Ivy League education. Yeah. On board with the Green Deal, socialism, and free pre-K, and by being born, you get a salary.
Yeah, and Cory Booker was regarded as a centrist mayor when he was a mayor. Yeah. He's moved left. Kirsten Gillibrand, North Country Democrat, moved left. Kamala Harris, tough prosecutor, moved left. And you said, who's going to actually call them on this? I never thought I'd be sitting opposite you and putting in a good word for Hillary Clinton. But in fact, when Bernie was running last time, and Bernie was saying, you can have everything, you can have this, you can have that, she stood there like a boring grown-up and said, well, he keeps promising free everything, but who's going to pay for it? There's no one playing the boring, unlikable, charmless Hillary grown-up in the Democrats' room.
You know, it is a guy that won't run as a Democrat, Howard Schultz. Yeah. And they say that his rollout of his book and his meetings and his the polls coming back are so negative the Democrats no longer fear him.
No, I think that's
and he's
actually
a liberal Democrat.
No, and I think that's actually one of the things we've seen from the sort of shrinking of the middle class in the last few years, is that there are large numbers of people now who actually have essentially a Latin American view of society, that there's a powerful elite at the top and a great seething mass of people underneath, and you look to the powerful elite to give you in the seething mass things. And that's basic. The Democrats are now actually running like a Latin American party.
Absolutely. I want to talk about the emergency funding, what the president's going to do, and what you think is going to happen in the Senate. But before we leave this, thought we should talk about Bezos a little bit. What his decision to take on the extortion, which seems to be the National Enquirer, his personal decision to blow up his marriage and with Lauren Sanchez. Now it looks like the brother was the one who leaked the pictures that blew up his personal life. But here is Mike Allen on Bezos' thinking, because Mayor de Blasio said, I thought I was negotiating to work this out. Why did he quit? Cut 49.
Someone who's been at ground zero of New York politics explained to me the Bezos thinking. He said, I stood up to National Enquirer's blackmail. I'm not going to be pushed around by every politician in Queens. And if you're thinking what Jeff Bezos is thinking, he's saying, I made this deal with the governor and the mayor. I reasonably assumed they could deliver. They couldn't, they didn't, I'm out of here. And if you're the mayor and the governor, you really miscalculated.
Yeah, I think I think that's slightly odd, tying his personal difficulties with the National Enquirer, which is right. He's right. If you're in that situation, say, I'm not going to give in to blackmail, because once you agree to blackmail, you keep being blackmailed. Here, look, Amazon, he's done something incredible. He started with an unprofitable online bookstore, and when he put all the bookstores out of business, he then started selling everything else. So he has dreams of being the retailer for the planet. The planet, he will be the company store for the planet. Right. And he's thinking of doing it with drones. And if you can do that, what he's done, then why does he need to negotiate with corrupt politicians when he can stick it in the middle of Tajikistan and deliver to the planet.
Absolutely, and evidently part of this was the facial recognition technology that he has shared with the Pentagon that they came up with. That upset because ICE uses it to identify illegals.
Yeah.
That is part of the reason why AOC and others are mad at Amazon.
Yeah.
Get that. Back in a moment with Mark Steyn. He doesn't really have many opinions on much to say. I apologize.
Do you still plan to file a legal challenge if and when he does that, and how quickly would you?
Did I ever say I was filing a legal challenge?
You said Democrats.
I may. That's an option, and we'll review our options. But it's important to note that when the president declares this emergency, first of all, it's not an emergency, what's happening at the border.
Wow, that's where we differ. Speaker Pelosi doesn't want to give the president a win. It doesn't acknowledge it's an emergency, and walls are immoral. Mark Steyn here. Mark, what's happened? This massive border bill has passed, $325 billion, under 1.4 for the wall with a bunch of restrictions. The president comes out and says, I found $8 billion, and by my executive power from 1976 granted the presidency, I am going to put that forward. And now Nancy Pelosi's move. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I think, well, I disagree with her for a start that it is an emergency. Secondly, obviously, they're trying to tie the president's hands. In the Obama stimulus, there was all kinds of money there to upgrade unimportant, inconsequential U.S.-Canadian border posts in the middle of nowhere, and that included compulsory purchase of farms that happened to straddle the border, all that kind of thing. Huge amounts of money. Little one-hut border posts would suddenly, it looked like the Starship Enterprise had been dropped into the Great North Woods in North Troy, Vermont, for example, which isn't like Tijuana or El Paso. And nobody attempted to say that the president does not have he wrecked a lot of cross-border communities. I say that as a Canadian who's used to going back and forth from the pizza place on the northern side back to the southern side with just your library card. He wrecked a lot of cross-border communities. Nobody attempted to tie his hands. What they're trying to do is ensure that the central pledge of the Trump campaign never happens.
And it bothers me. By the way, see Mark Steyn and Dennis Miller together in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Reading.
I'm sorry.
You pretend to be American.
February 22nd and February 23rd in Syracuse, New York. In Rochester on March 1st at the Kodak Center in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Check it out at Mark Steyn online. Right, Mark?
Yeah, that's right.